Solving equations with fractions is not much different than solving your regular equations for x. So we'll look at this first example here. Notice that there's a fraction. Your fraction buster step is to simply take whatever the denominator is and look for a common denominator. In this case, the only denominator is 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply every single term by 2. So this will be times 2, and if you want, you can write it as 2 over 1, so it looks like a fraction, times 2, times 2, times 2. And if we go through each piece, here, 2x on the numerator and 2 in the denominator. Second piece, 2 times 5 would be 10, equals 2 times 2x would be 4x, and 2 times the 7 would be minus 14. Now, if we look at this fraction, the only part left is a fraction that can be reduced. 2 over 2 just makes 1, or 1x. The rest stays the same. And this is our regular solving problem where we're solving for x. So one thing I could do is try to get the numbers and the x's on one side. So I might do add 14 because I like positive numbers. Minus 14 and positive 14 cancels out. 10 plus 14 is 24. And we keep the rest of the equation. Then we'd have to get the x's both together on the same side. So we'll minus the 1x. That cancels out. And we have 24 is equal to 4 minus 1 would be 3x. Now that the x is by itself and the number is on the other side, we need to get rid of the 3 multiplier in front of the x, so we will divide by 3 and we'll get x equals 8. No different than a normal solving problem except this very first step at the top, which is multiply everything by that common denominator. Let's look at one more example. Now I have 2 fractions, so I'm going to compare my fractions here and find a common denominator. What do 2 and 4 have as a number that they can both go into as a common denominator? You might say 8. There's nothing wrong with 8. It's just not the smallest common denominator. So instead of multiplying everything by 8, I'll pick a smaller one. The common denominator that I'll pick will be 4. So I will multiply top and bottom, top of the fraction and every term by 4. So I'll write times 4, and if it helps, you can write it as a 4 over 1, times 4, times 4, and again, you can write it as 4 over 1 if that helps, and times 4. And then we'll look at each of our individual pieces. Multiplying this, we'd have 4x over 2 plus, multiplying here, 4 times 5 is 20, equals, multiplying my fraction here, 3x times 4 would be 12x, and then 4 denominator, and then last piece, 7 times 4 would be 28. Again, it looks like they're still fractions, but every fraction should be able to be reduced now. 4 over 2, or 4 divided by 2, would reduce to 2x plus 20, and 12 over 4x, or 12x over 4, is like 12 divided by 4, or 3x, and then minus 28. And once again, we're solving like a normal equation. Because I like positives, I'm going to add 28. That makes 48. That cancels out. Keep the rest, 2x plus 3x. Then the x's are on 2 separate sides, so I'll have to minus the 2x. And we'll have 3x minus 2 would be 1x, or just x, equals 48. So as a reminder, normal solving for x, just this first step up here, was to find amongst all those fractions what would be a common denominator. You're not actually getting the common denominator, but you're multiplying that top row, every term of your equation, by that number to try to simplify the fractions.